Sir?
So the first one is a Riesling Icewine. So I chose these two because I chose this one. Just free pouring. Yeah, it just may not. Yeah, sugar and alcohol content. It's like a syrup. Oh, you see that? Yeah, that's
No,
fine.
totally good. We're totally good with that.
Sure?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Oh boy. Okay. All right, girls. Someone will have to carry you home. That's how we start things here on Flying Flavor.
It won't be the first time that I've had wine with Stephanie and my husband has had to come and get me. Maybe I should clarify that.
Okay, so this first one, it's a from Palatine Hills in Niagara. It was one of the first places I went last year when I was there. And one of the reasons I forgot that I even bought the Riesling one because we have another one of theirs. And you can't get them at the LCBO. I know.
Sorry.
I know. It's like, happy place.
You like it?
Oh, smell it. So amazing. So perry.
It is.
Yes. So that's why I thought I wanted to accentuate that kind of aroma to it. So that'll be the first one. We're going pure sugar today.
Very nice.
May be speaking very quickly within the hour.
This is actually the first time I ever try this one. Ever.
Oh my God, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah.
Icewine Virgin.
Yeah.
That's a new hashtag for the rest of this show. Okay.
Deeks hashtag.
Deeks hashtag. So the whole crew is back in the house. I was all alone last week.
Oh?
You'd be happy to know that I did not consume the white port. Kept it in storage. So that's okay. So we're all back. So Deke, Stacy, and Cynthia are all here. Got to do our cheers. So ting, 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 ting.
Cheers.
Gang's back together. Oh, it's just lovely. Like liquid gold. Okay.
Awesome.
So that's the first one we're drinking, Palatine Hills. Of course, any wines mentioned today, I'll have the links on the show notes for you today. So, I wanted to know, does anyone have any current rumors, news, whatever to share? Because if not, I got a whole list and I'll just go.
No, I think the only thing I've been is busy wedding season right now.
It is.
So it's been meetings after meeting people, and super exciting because here in the north, the idea of wedding planning and coordinating is actually catching on. And instead of me going, please, wedding planning is really important and you need a coordinator, because we've actually had people seeking us out this season, which is super cool. But I do have one client who's struggling because she had a food truck booked for her reception, and it was like a backyard tent wedding, and they were coming to her, and she loved that it was all kind of encompassed and they could cook it fresh there for them. But the company called her last week and said they shut down. And rumor has it that they may be a victim of the new minimum wage hike. So I know it's something that's kind of
seems to be a common theme we've been discussing.
We've talked about it a few times, and we were talking about it earlier today, and it was like, is this really a thing? We certainly seem to be seeing it in my industry where people are having to make some real big changes real fast and impacting my clients.
It's so soon that we don't know yet. Just everyone's nervous about it.
And that's the whole thing. I mean, depending on how well businesses are keeping track of their books and their accounting, and they're forecasting their cash flow, they may be trying to anticipate saying, okay, once I do this, there's no other way that I can change things. But I've talked to some other people. I mean, one of the first episodes that I did last fall was about these new changes that were coming. And I didn't get a lot of business owners or managers so panicked at the time. The mentality was, we don't want to change the level of service. So we're going to figure out some other way that we can still keep as many people on, maybe double up on jobs. Cross-training was mentioned as huge. So anyone who is working, especially in the restaurant industry, if you are only working, demanding that I only work bar shifts, if you want to get more shifts and be working longer, you're going to start taking other shifts that are there. Kitchen staff, you got to be starting to be okay being a dishwasher. Yeah. Because dishwasher and hostesses are going to be the two jobs that are going to get killed first.
See, one of the things I'm doing is as you know, I partnered with United Way. Not much has happened with that yet, but we recently got into talks again. Actually, we just had a meeting this week, and they're going to be going forward with the fundraising, etc. But when I go storefront, when that dream is realized, one of the things that I want to do to tackle that issue is to gain subsidies and grants to hire at-risk youth. And have
there's a lot of opportunities out there that you can,
that's my background, is working in life skills and special education anyhow. So to do that would be one of the ideas in which way I could brave that a little bit better. also on top of that to offer the whole equal opportunity employment and et cetera. So it's a different model, I think, because I'm going into this fresh and I'm going in realizing that, okay, this is going to be a problem. How do I tackle this? So like right off the bat. So,
but I think because you're going to be starting like after the new wage has been implemented, I think you may have it even a better look at it, only because there's no one else to compare it to. So it's not like someone's going to walk in saying, well, your dill pickle was this price last time and it's now this price. Now that by the time you're opening up the whole storefront thing, like, oh, it's going to be so much better.
You're right. Yeah.
You can start out pricing anything you want. Really? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Has anybody noticed like increases in prices in the stores yet?
Not
in terms
yet.
of increase of just regular prices, let's say in regular
Not
retail
over.
stores?
I'm finding less sales maybe. A lot of times I don't necessarily notice it because I'm shopping specifically for particular items for recipes and they're kind of built into the costs anyways. And then the pennies here and there might not be that big of a deal. I think I would have noticed it more back when I was catering.
Right.
Because the per person cost is a little bit more delicate than it is just for the classes.
I think we're seeing companies are trying to do everything but increase their prices at this point to manage it.
I think so.
You know what I mean? Whether it's changing benefits packages, whether it's hiring less staff or changing what their staff are doing. But making up, 30% extra on your payroll is a huge increase to have to make. So, I mean, this particular company that my client was working with was a relatively new company as well too, so cash flow is tight at the beginning of your first 5 years anyways. Then you add in an unplanned, we've known about it for 6 months or so. It's tough to pre-plan for a 30% increase to your entire payroll, so it's hard to fault. So yeah, so we're seeing a bit of a trickle down in our industry for sure.
Okay, so here's a little rundown on the news stuff. I actually included the links in the show notes already. So I'm a bit of a news junkie, so I tend to save all these things as I'm reading them. So some idiot that used to work for Goldman Sachs, I guess he figured that his boss, who used to let him open and close his different houses and condos, wouldn't notice over a period of years of him stealing $12 million of wine. Out of his cellar. Not to mention, not just any bottles, but this guy was a well-known collector in the States. And these are massive bottles, Domini Romani Conti, and my thought is that my comment when I saw it on Twitter, right? First I had I wanted to say, dude, did you not, anyone who is a serious wine collector has a system. They are going to notice when he meant 12 million, anyways, I want to say idiot.
Regardless of whether you're a serious collector or not, how do you not notice $12 million?
Because he had it stored in all these houses, and most of those wines are ones that you store for a long period of time.
I feel like dude has too much money.
Yeah, well, he probably does, but regardless, I thought
he still no one deserves
no
it.
problems.
Yeah, right?
Hashtag.
Yeah, it's I wonder how far it went to. I wonder how far the guy. Anyways,
Probably didn't even know the valuableness of the
No one
wine
has
that he
tried
took.
to steal my box of wine out of my kitchen, so
Now I know you have one.
I knew
It was only 2 weeks ago.
I knew one lady who used to keep a box of wine on top of her fridge.
oh, not on top.
Yeah, it was cooked, I'm sure. Next bit of news, if you haven't seen it already, the keg has been bought out by Cara Restaurants.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's big news, which means that so I had to explain it to people saying, you know how you go to Montana's and Kelsey's and Swiss Chalet and Milestones and they have all the same gift cards and they all do redeem and award scene points? The keg is now in that. So the keg is now in with Finn McCool's, everything else. So it's just one larger umbrella. Not sure if it's going to be good news or bad news. We'll see.
I worry that Cara will eventually take over our world and there'll be no one else who owns restaurants in Canada.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we have a little restaurant conglomerate here starting in Sudbury Quintic.
We have fantastic local opportunities,
Yes.
but when it comes to, it's Canada-wide domination.
But it also may be something that they're thinking about having to do with costs of minimum wage, everything else. right? That they're buying these things out, they may get better costs at the store
Because they're
level,
bigger.
right? So who knows? I just thought it was interesting. So I'm going to make a stop at our local keg restaurant, and I'm going to start to chat with some staff a little bit and see what they think. This is just going to be completely nerding out. So our Prime Minister was over in Switzerland and just was basically led the charge in negotiating the new TPP with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And without the U.S., woohoo! So now, of course, we look like heroes, which is great. However, one of the cool things is that I was talking about the Canada Food Guide last episode about how our cattle farmers, dairy farmers, egg farmers are all up in arms, the fact that the amount of protein that the government's recommending in our diets is being pulled back. Well, the cattle farmers are uber excited about the TPP because we just opened up the market to our cattle association to Japan, who love me some beef, right? Anyways, it's just one of those things that everybody's
Trade 'em up
itching
the
for.
Wagyu and the Kobe. That's fine. We'll take it.
Hey, they're just looking for straight, so the cattle has just the Canadian Cattle Association now just opened up a massive door to them, and they said from there there's all these other markets they'll have access to that they didn't before.
Sorry, did you happen to see today in the news they were talking, and I should have mentioned it before, about Campbell's Soup? They're closing down the factory down south and they're bringing all the jobs to the U.S. Site. And one of my very first jobs was being a rep in Northern Ontario for Campbell's Soup.
Yeah.
And I saw it today in the paper, and they're sort of relating it to Trump and stuff, but they're saying they're changing it there because of the different tariffs and stuff. So they've decided to close the shop, move all the rest of the
just
jobs.
do it down there.
There's a loss of 380 or 480 jobs.
There must be some kind of incentive on the other side,
Yes, to bring
and
them
considering that NAFTA is still under negotiation,
Yes.
that's a little bit preemptive move.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So I just thought to throw that in.
God. Ooh, we're nerding out today.
Right with you.
I know.
So were there any shithole countries on that pact? Is that why Trump wasn't interested in...
No, I'm not even discussing those today. I don't qualify any country as a shithole, but that's just me.
I agree.
I've been to some little corners of places but never a particular town or city. The other thing is Delta Airlines. Stacey, you might know this one.
Yes.
They're changing the rules for dogs on flights.
I did see that.
Where it's so now just because if so on a previous episode where I was interviewing Lori Johnston Harris, we were talking about pets and travel. There was a website that I had in the link and showing how easy it is to register your animal as a service dog, emotional support dog. Essentially, you fill in a form and you check a box saying, do you promise that your dog is well enough trained to do this. And you check off and say yes, and you pay whatever the fee is, and they send you a pretty little vest and all the other things. That's how easy it is.
I'm so doing that with my Chihuahua. I'm so excited.
But just don't go on Delta, because now Delta's taking that extra step that you need to prove they have all the vaccinations, everything else within a certain period of time. And they're going to be a little bit more strict on what the definition for emotional support. I guess they've been letting any animal on besides just dogs.
Ruin it out there, right?
Well, I guess...
Someone was bringing a possum.
Yeah.
An emotional support
One
possum.
of them was a parrot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder that's why those snakes. Do you see those YouTube videos where the snakes come out of the top?
That's not funny.
No,
we don't talk about that.
No, but I know. But the thing is, maybe
It's my
someone.
therapy python.
Yeah, maybe that's exactly what happened.
Nope. That.
Skin
nope.
soothed.
Nope. Just nope.
Somebody went a little too far.
Just nope. Nope.
And then the last one has to do with our own local airport. So it was just in the newspaper about our that there was back in October 2016. I know that's a long time ago, but I guess there was a close call in the air of a Jazz flight and a Porter flight.
Okay.
And it has to do with air traffic control or whatever else, and they finally had their ruling and stuff done. But the cool thing is, and I don't know if I told you guys, I'm going to be interview one of the management at Sudbury Airport next week before the episode. So we'll be able to listen to it real time and then comment afterwards.
Fun.
But I want to, not just to go and talk to him, not just what wasn't about this particular ruling, but I've been seeing a lot online about people concerned about flight delays and cancellations coming out of the Sudbury Airport going to Toronto.
Especially
I know that Norm and I have a few times had some issues in the past, and we've been choosing our flight and our airlines very carefully. So we'll choose one and a certain flight and look for what time the connecting is, because if something happens and that gets canceled, at least I have the option to drive.
And when is the
Absolutely.
next possible flight that they cancel?
And I
that
shouldn't
one?
have to feel that way. So I'm going to speak on behalf of all the people who are frustrated with it
Yes, please.
and see if I can get some answers.
Also, can you ask as well when you're there? Can you ask the question about, let's say you're in Toronto, waiting for a Jazz flight, the earlier one, let's say the 7:00 flight to Sudbury or the one,
Yep.
whatever 5 something. What happens if all of a sudden it gets canceled and you hear the rumors of the fact that it wasn't full enough, so they've bumped you to the later flight
Ooh.
to keep it fuller, so they don't have to run the full flight?
Yeah, I'm going to
empty?
ask about the full flights. Full flights are one. I do know that there's a pilot shortage.
Okay. Then don't schedule it.
I do know there's a pilot shortage.
My
That's
big
one
thing
of
is
the
the
issues.
overbooking. Let's sell 50 seats on a 30-seat plane, and we'll just see who shows up.
Well, go online. That's my tip. Always go online and select your seat. It's well worth the $20 or
Yeah.
$25 now.
Yep.
'Cause you'll have your
Especially
seat cut
because
for you.
until you select your seat,
be
you are
smart.
not guaranteed the seat that you paid for. And you can be bumped, from what I understand.
Yep. Oh yeah, we always choose our seats
Yeah.
in advance. I've already booked my March flights, and I selected the seats immediately because we've been stung with that when we get there. And sometimes they've actually changed a flight when we get there, and even the seats we've paid for. Now all of a sudden we're in the back of the nose, right?
Thank you. I've done that to first class staff. And, then
And they're
next
like, "Oh,
thing
well, you
know,
can
they
get your money
switch.
back." Not the point. I paid for having these seats, and now I can't have
Exactly.
these seats. It's not the same thing.
Oh, I know.
Oh my god, that wasn't even my fly in my soup today.
Sorry, that was mine.
That's
It's the full flight to no flight. I'm like, what?
That's okay. I'm going to mention, you talk about no news, but I was going to talk about, I put on there your fundraising for school initiative.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about it, because it's a new way of raising money as opposed to chocolate bars.
Yeah, it's really cool. We just created a very much user-friendly form in which it would be like these prepaid forms like Little Caesars Pizza Kits, or I should have said that.
Pierogies and
Yeah, pierogies and no-name companies and etc. So this form goes out, carried out by the students or team members or whatever the case. And it's brought back. It's very user-friendly, and it's an easy way which is a no-risk way to raise funds. So I'm offering up 33% right now, which is
Nice.
which is a good
That is
good
cool.
payback, yeah.
So the link
And
is
it's
on
to buy
there,
the
and
harness?
and the forms and everything are available through the website.
That's
that I put in
right.
The link, right?
And
I'm
the
also through that I'm also partnered through a couple different charities. So it's a Human League and United Way that are doing that too. So the dividends are split that way. But that's exciting. That's going to be coming within the next few weeks.
Very cool.
So if I have a child in dance or in skating and they have to fundraise, do they just go online and grab the link and get a hold of you directly, or is that
Well, the
you
form,
organizing?
the forms will probably be distributed by the dance school or the school
Okay.
in question. But there
most
is
of them
because
are
there's just like
mandated
a
to go through
sample
that.
form
Okay.
online.
Okay.
That deal, but I personalize it with the team's logo, with the school's
perfect.
logo. Or
Yeah, there's a sample form right on the website and the link that I put on.
Okay.
Yeah.
For anyone's looking for the show notes, of course, it's episode 24, stephaniepichet.ca/flavor24. Okay, Icewine. It's so funny. Okay, you have not been drinking enough fast enough. What the hell?
All of it.
it's like drinking syrup.
I liked it. You don't want it?
On it, you can just.
Yeah, you can just. I have to. Okay, I can
love-
invent. So I was at the Bordeaux release.
I saw
You
you.
like it?
So
Instagram.
I had
choking it
my
down.
little blog post that I posted for anyone who didn't read it. It was kind of short. I was going to do a whole bonus episode on it. It was okay. It was a smaller show than I've used to for previous years. They only had one Sauterne. So for those of you who don't know what Sauterne is, so Sauterne is would be similar, the French's version of Icewine. So it's just a sweeter dessert wine. It's made in the Bordeaux region. It's one of my all-time favorites, and that's one of my highlights. I was actually doing a little happy dance driving down to Toronto, going, "I'm having Sauterne tonight." I was all excited, and then I got there and they had one. I mean, it's a great one, but they had one because I found out there's a competing show in Washington D.C. that was the same night, so they had to divide all the inventory and everything else. So we got one Sauterne for the whole show. Was not impressed. So I'm getting my fix now with this. When you're finished with this one, so the next one we're doing, and then I'll talk a little bit about Icewine. It is from the same producer. It is a Cabernet Sauvignon Icewine.
Oh,
We
interesting.
talked about this one last time, I remember.
Yeah, so it's just people are producers down in Canada have been making the Cab Franc style of ice wine for a little while now. So now everyone's on the Cabernet Sauvignon kick because it's a little bit different. So just to give you a little bit of example, so there's the history for people who don't know it. So believe it or not, Canadians did not invent ice wine. It's actually invented by Germans, and it used to, of course, in German it's called Icewine, right? E-I-S. And then someone in BC tried to tackle it. They did okay, but they don't get the same consistently cold temperatures that you really need to produce to be able to get it to the right temperature so you can harvest them, right? So I guess a couple guys from Inniskillen were the first ones to try it, and it was back, and I guess they sort of decided to test out some methods with their Vidal grapes, and then so they finally decided to launch it, and instead of doing a little soft launch down in Southern Ontario, they actually went to the 1991 Vin Expo in Bordeaux, which I thought
You're gonna go big. That's ballsy.
Exactly,
That's ballsy.
which is like the biggest wine show, and they actually won the 1980 with their 1989 Vidal ice wine. They won the Grand Prix d'Honneur, which is the largest award of that year, and that's basically skyrocketed the Canadian ice wine industry into superstardom. And then it was the trendiest, coolest thing in the globe. So it was kind of a cool thing. And then those guys aren't with Inniskillen anymore, but Inniskillen is still one of the best, well-known producers, consistently winning gold medals and everything else for their ice wine. So that's my little shout out to Inniskillen. So there's different styles of grapes you can be using. They're usually, very rarely have I seen a blend used in ice wine because it's very difficult and there's only so much juice that comes out of the grapes when you're harvesting them, right? So they're usually single varietal bottles. So the Vidal is, of course, is the one that's usually known. A lot of people you don't usually see it in regular bottles of wine unless you're kind of hanging out in Niagara. Usually people are more familiar with it on ice wine. So the flavors, the undertones on that are going to be more on the honey side of things.
I was just going to say, absolutely. Yeah.
So honey notes, if it's been aged in oak, you're going to get the vanilla. You're going to get a little bit more almond. It goes really well with like tropical desserts if you're going to pair it with a dessert. Riesling, which is what we're having, this one's going to have a little bit more on the either a citrus note or apple. It's really going to come in. Citrus, sometimes melon, a little bit of pear. It's got a higher acidity level, so it does really well with like really creamy, rich foods. This would be like that cheese thing. So this is like a cheese thing. It's like a terrine almost. So it's a blue cheese and fruit terrine. I've got the recipe for you on there, but it's like super easy. You mix everything in a bowl, you wrap it in saran wrap and leave it in your fridge, and you just have to set it out on a cheese board, and it's done.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, especially because it's not, even people who are scared of blue cheese,
mild.
it is very mild.
Yeah.
I specifically did that way. So that's an easy one. Foie gras would be big. Creme brulee would be good for that. This kind of thing would be good for this Riesling ice wine that we're having now. And then the Cab Franc that I mentioned, that's all berry forward. So you get lots of big strawberry, like a strawberry rhubarb pie kind of flavors in it. Does really well with any kind of berry fruits. If you have a berry sauce with something, I don't think that people should always just focus on desserts to pair ice wine. I think that it should also be, try some savory stuff. So I've got a duck breast that I'm probably cooking up this weekend. If I did like a blackberry sauce or something with it, then I would try a Cab Franc ice wine to go with that. It would accentuate the blackberry stuff as long as the sauce isn't too sweet.
I've heard of people pouring the ice wine right over ice cream as well.
Yes, I think one of the differences, though, you have to be careful that because ice wine is so sweet, that if you have it with something else that's as sweet or sweeter, you'll lose the flavor and the sweetness in the ice wine. Like, it'll just overpower it. So if you're going to have ice wine shine, have something less sweet than that. So those little pear and almond tarts that are also recipes on there, I made little bite-sized ones out of them. Like, super easy, almost like a butter tart. Like, there's the... just the pear, and there's some ground almonds just in the bottom of the pastry. Sprinkle a little extra on top. But they're not overly sweet, so they go really well with an ice wine as a bit of a balance, right? Cheeses, of course, do well. That's why I did the blue cheese. Blue cheese, any kind of blue cheese goes well with a sweet wine. Strong aged cheeses, Pecorino Romano, right? A good Parmesan, that kind of thing. Something big and salty would actually do really well with it too. Any kind of salty hors d'oeuvres, put this right in front of the nut bowl. Popcorn, there's nothing wrong with popcorn, but I would actually have a good salty with, like grated cheese and stuff on the popcorn.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily, as much as I love truffle on popcorn, I would save that for the champagne's pairing, not necessarily the ice wine pairing.
Do it in duck fat.
Pardon?
Duck fat. That's the base for the popcorn.
Oh, okay.
That would be good.
That would be.
I have some duck fat in my fridge. As one does. I had to do it. I had to do a duck confit thing for a video, so I happen to have some duck fat left over in my
I would
fridge.
have loved to have been part of that one.
It's really. Oh yeah, it's super easy to do.
We just need to camp out on her doorstep.
Just sort of hang out and then sneak in when I open the door.
Yeah.
Spicy food is also a good balance, not just with ice wine, but any kind of an off-dry wine is, when we're doing the sparkling ones, the same thing. Those go really well with spicy foods. So that would be good as an alternative to people who are going for sushi, right? And they're not necessarily, they're nervous about trying the other sake. If it's a restaurant that has ice wine, try an ice wine with your spicy tuna roll.
No kidding.
I'll do a lot of plum wine with
That I
my
wouldn't have.
plum wine with my sushi because it pairs really well.
Yeah, and the richness of the fish will really make a big difference too. And then one of the other cool things that I saw in there, I haven't got an exact recipe for it. I'll try to look for it before I upload this. But try replacing some of the vinegar in your homemade salad dressing with ice wine.
Oh, I can see that.
Right? Like just a little bit, especially if you have your greens are on the bitter side, you're doing more like arugula, that kind of stuff. Having that sweeter dressing on the thing, I think will be a little bit, maybe not all of the vinegar, because that would just make your eyes cross, but maybe take half of the vinegar component in it and then replace it with some of the ice wine. I think that'll be fun. Because depending on the size of the bottle that you end up buying, not everyone goes through, no one powers through a bottle like we do.
That's because we're professionals. Don't try this at home.
Don't try this at home.
Try it, everyone. Try it, everyone.
Okay, go drink
maybe
it. I
when
want you
you're
to try the Cabernet one.
Yeah.
Drink back, folks. Speaking of not
exactly-
like chugging the ice wine.
The honey,
as I say, sucker back.
the honey and the apple.
Okay, we're not going to let Deke pour all these this time. You're going to pour your own.
Deke overpoured for the ladies and left himself a mouthful.
Thank God. Can you imagine if I would have had like the big like Pinot Noir glasses?
Yeah, no.
You would have.
Okay, it's time
The
for
good
fly.
news is you can have more.
It's time for fly in my soup.
Yeah, it's a bigger bottle than the last one, too.
Yeah, this is the time of the episode where I get to vent a little bit, like I haven't been venting already. Then you guys can just join the fun if you have something to complain about. So because I was at the wine show, and then I just booked another one to go at the end of February as well, another wine event. I guess my fly in my soup is people who do not have etiquette when tasting rooms, when they go to wine regions or go to wine events. Number one thing is if you're going to a place that has samples and it's a walk-around tasting, you take your tasting, you get them to pour it, and you leave the table. Mm-hmm. You don't stand there for 3 hours chatting up the people who are pouring, chatting up the guy behind the thing. If you do need to ask somebody a question, just pull them to the side for a minute so that other people can still go in. So that's a big venting thing. Same thing happens in tasting rooms where people like to lean on the tasting room bar and they kind of hang out there for a bit and they don't care if there's anyone behind them. It's just it does slow things down. It is kind of makes for a long, people get cranky. I've had one guy stand so close to the back of my neck that he was breathing on it, which is a little gross. So that was on get out of the way. Number 2 is those who pregame. Going to a wine event, you don't need to, when I see people stumbling in, especially some of the bigger wine events, some of them like pre-drink before they go to the wine show, and then they go there to drink some more before they go to the bar.
Yeah.
You know what, if you're there for a serious thing, you don't need to pregame before you go. And then the other thing is that those that almost have to get carried out of the wine show on the way out, especially when you go to the higher end wine shows or wine tastings, like the Bordeaux event is a big one. I mean, most of the people there are spitting. They're not consuming everything that's poured for them. And that's one of the reasons that majority of the people could actually walk out at the end of the night. So if you actually want to not kill your palate and actually enjoy yourself for the evening, you got to pace yourself. And I know it's going to be hard. Don't drink the entire sample that they'll always give you probably more than you need. Most of them do. They'll always give you like at least an ounce and a half sometimes. And even though I tell them like just a splash, they still want to give me more because they want me to experience their wines more. But there's no rule that you have to finish it all.
There's no rule that says you have to go and get hammered at a wine tasting.
No. I have to admit, the first couple times I went, I came close. So now I have to have a plan of action. Just so I don't embarrass myself. Especially now that I write about the wine shows when I get back. That would be just...
That's that girl.
Oh, we know who she is. Anybody else have anyone you want to vent about today? Come on, you guys are just happy.
No, I'm with you. I've been at wine events, and it's. I mean, I don't necessarily go to the ones that you. I did not name any names, but the person who was with me at the last wine event, Stacey.
Oh, I was there too.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were. And I took very good care of my new mutual friend who overdid it. But
and that's not the same kind of wine
No,
show as the
it
wine
isn't.
shows I'm talking about, by the way.
But in this one, we saw a lot of that as well too. But it's like they were chatting up the people pouring behind the table. But it's not even like they were wine experts behind the table. They were just servers who were hired to pour glasses of wine. So it's like, okay, don't flirt with the little girls. Like, come on out and let other people have an opportunity as well too.
Yes, exactly. So what do you think, the Cab Sauv? Different, eh? So the Cab Franc, because remember I said it's berry forward. The Cab Sauv is going to be more floral.
This is like
Floral? Do you get the rose?
Say, like,
I get
pruny.
roses in it, right?
I've never had this before. This is really nice.
Nice, eh? I got such a good deal on a whole case of this. Because I was there. It was the funny thing was it was a timing thing. It was one of those things where it was one of the first wineries we went to when I was there last spring, and they were telling us that I guess they pulled it off their listing because they thought they were finished with it. And then they were getting set up for the weekend, and someone found 2 cases tucked away someplace. They didn't know about it. And they said, we haven't even put it out on the shelf. It's not even on our list. They said, if you guys want it, I forget how much you paid for it. We were there with another couple. We both just popped them in the back of the vehicle.
Done and done.
Done and done.
Way to do it.
Yep.
This is one I would have with sushi.
Very nice.
So this one would be really great with chocolate, which is one of the reasons I put it in there. So these are little biscuits, just store-bought ones with the dark chocolate on it. And then milk chocolate would actually be probably really delicate with that because,
Right.
you'll get that dried fruit stuff with it.
Yeah.
And then milk chocolate's going to be a little bit sweeter, so I think it should balance it out. So feel free to nibble if you need to.
I don't usually say this about whites, but I actually preferred the Riesling over
Yeah?
this one. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I got to get you trying a Sauterne now. I'm excited.
Sure.
Do you like port?
I
Oh, we're going to do a port show.
usually cook with it more than
Oh,
Really?
yeah. Like
yeah, I cook with it too. She makes the pretty glass. Yeah, it's
You mean
usually.
you're supposed to put the wine in the food when you're cooking with wine?
Oh, did you see the picture that I posted when I was in Portugal?
Yes.
The guy, after I finished my meal, he kept like pouring, like he brought me this little shot glass, and he just kept free pouring. And I was like, oh, and I wasn't feeling the greatest, and I had a little sip, and went, oh, it was so good. And Norm says,
And that
hurry
was
up,
it.
we gotta go. Sucker back. So good. I said, that was just the free stuff. Can you imagine?
maybe with the chocolate sauce with the blackberries and port. Like for lamb. Yeah,
This would be good with that.
I can imagine.
Yeah. You're going to be shopping for Icewine more often.
Yeah.
So I do have the recipes not just for the pear and almond tarts and then the blue cheese terrine, but I also have it for those who are as interested, a really easy chicken liver mousse that's got a touch of curry in it.
That'd be good.
Yeah. So again, because of the richness of the mousse, I think that, and chicken livers are nice and fatty, so I think that would be really nice pairing with that. I'm trying to think if I do a Riesling. I think the Vidal would be nicer with the chicken with the curry. I think because the tropical flavors I think would be in it. I think the Riesling would be a little bit more on the apple side, but maybe I'm wrong. I would like to experiment with it.
There's only one way to try.
There's only one way to try it. I don't know if anyone else had anything else. I have last closing stuff. So next week is the airport delays. I'll be coming back with my interview with I think he's the business development manager at the Sudbury Airport. We have a live event coming up. Our first one as a group. Woo! So that's going to be February 15th. We're having it here in Sudbury at the Hard Rock 42 Gastro Pub.
Yeah.
We were going to do a beer episode, and we thought, why just sit here and drink by ourselves? So we thought we'd invite all of you to come drink with us. Yes, you're buying your own beer. I may get some free samples from some local brewsters would be kind of fun. So we're hoping to get a lot of swag. I'm going to have some Flying for Flavor swag, some getting t-shirts, and there's like tea towels for your kitchen and all kinds of fun. I even got this cool sun hat. That's like 50 SPF proof or something like that. It'll be fun. It'll be a nice crusher hat to throw in your bag. So I'm hoping to get a bunch of those kind of things for just in time to get you in the mood for having beer, patio fun, right? So we're going to do that. We may have some other few surprises, hoping to have maybe a couple of guests showing up. But all you have to do is show up to Hard Rock 42 in Sudbury at 5 p.m. We'll be starting to tape. So we'll be doing it live. It might be a little longer than the hour or so in the actual show, and then we'll sort of splice it together to upload it to iTunes afterwards. But it'll be a first one, which is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And we have other ones planned too, but we're not telling you yet. And then I'm going to have an information session on that cruise in the Bordeaux. I remember I said I was going to have another one coming up. Right now we're looking at February 25th. I will have the details of it on there if you want to reserve a seat, because they will have limited seating at this one. Just feel free to send an email at the link at the bottom of these show notes. It's at flavor@stephaniepichet.ca, and just let me know that you're interested in coming. And then I'll reserve your seat for you. There's no cost to go. We'll basically just run through the whole idea of the cruise. You can ask all the questions. And if you're really good, I might bring more wine. Because it wouldn't be a Bordeaux cruise if you're not having wine while you're looking at the fabulous pictures and hearing all about it, right? So yes, on the show notes, you're going to have recipes, the wine links to the 2 wines that we're having, and I also listed some other really great ice wines that are available in the LCBO that if you want to try them. Now that Deke's a new fan of Icewine. And then, of course, all the articles for those news things that I hit up at the beginning of the show in case you need to read more about the nerdy stuff like the TPP and Delta Airlines and all that kind of fun stuff. So I want it to be a bit of a resource. So we're kind of like a cable news show that talks about food, wine, and travel and drinks on the show. And then thanks to Deke for adding to the thing. He brought us their new secret recipes for the hummus that you can't know about yet. So he let us be guinea pigs, which is part of the fun of having food friends.
Do you guys like them?
Mm-hmm. I love it. I'm super excited about that one.
Yeah. So we're not quite sure how they're pairing with the Icewine, but but you know it takes 4 of us to experiment. So we're taking one for you, right? All right.
Out of the big goodness of our heart.
All right. See you next week.